here all day and learn so much from the Take Back the Day conferences, the best practice. I've been so inspired by the work that's being done here and am so grateful to share this space with you tonight. I know how important this space is. I thought about it today as I was preparing for this, that this is kind of my 15-year mark of Take Back the Night. The first time I went was 15 years ago, and I've been president at every university I've been at and Take Back the Night since then. So I'm honored to be here and share with you in your Take Back the Night as we do here at Portland State University this evening. And it's also 20 years since I became a survivor that I walk into this space as well. And so I think what is most important for me to highlight in this moment is how important these kinds of spaces are in terms of reclaiming our voices, our humanity, our institutions, our families, our loved ones within the context of ending sexual violence. I think about this in terms of my own process of healing and restoration, which is an ongoing process. It's not a final destination, but somewhere we think about as we're moving towards, as we have the I would say the kind of pre-trauma moment and the post-trauma moment that happened, and that process of dealing that. And so much of that has been what it means to build in community, what it means to do the kind of work that I do now as a survivor, that it adds something very intimate, very personal, very real for me, something very sincere about the work that I do. I am a women's studies professor, so I'm often encountering issues of gender and sexual violence in terms of the work that I do. But it also opens me up to being someone that is talking to students about their experiences, their campus climate that they're enduring, the experiences that they are having, and being a space of knowing that having been someone who experienced sexual violence both as a teenager and then again as a college student, I know what that experience is. I know seeing me as a professor can sometimes disrupt that knowledge of who I am, that I'm the instructor, I'm a figure of authority. But to have these moments and to be on a college campus and say, I see you, I feel you, I am in community with you, and I want to be there for you, which I know looks different across the spectrum of experiences with sexual violence. Right? What is necessary for restoring after the encounters or encounters, which often is the case as well. For me, that is finding space in pleasure and in joy, being able to develop a sex-positive framework even in the work that I do post-encounter, not allowing that to deter me from defining myself for myself, being invested in communities that are about joy and pleasure and laughing, and that allow me for space for pain and for developing a new kind of care ethic. So much of what's important about Take Back the Night is that we can see each other in a different way in this moment and hold each other in a different way in this moment. That this may be the first moment for some people in this room really seeing themselves as survivors. Right? This night could be that night for someone. So when we're out tonight marching and we're listening and we're holding space and saying we're taking that back, remember the intimate moments that are possible on a night like this as well. Remember to take care of one another in these moments. Remember to check in with one another in these moments. As celebratory as this night can be, as we're saying what we are definitively doing, what we are doing to move forward, what we are doing to challenge systems of oppression, what we're doing to challenge rape culture, what we're doing to end sexual violence, we have to also remember each survivor's story, each survivor's journey, each survivor's most intimate and interior moments are present in this room with us today. And to take that and to hold that as we march today means that we take seriously the emotional justice work that has to happen too. We often think about this in the big terms and the policies and the procedures, but so much of this work is about emotional justice as well. How we feel whole again. What does whole mean for us? What does safe mean for us in these moments? So I ask us to be self-reflexive in these moments, to think about those who you know have experienced violence, to really reflect on how we can show up, how we are complicit, how we are not as accountable as we should be to one another and to ending sexual violence, and to making the commitment tonight to being more accountable to one another. To really stop and asking people, when you ask someone how they're doing, wait for a response, right? Really wait for a response. I've often told my friends, never ask me how I'm doing if you're not ready to hear how I'm doing, right? Which is not something we get to practice in a kind of moving and going society that we're in. You just kind of say, hey, how you doing? All right, see you later. Which doesn't actually give you a moment to see the humanity of another person, and to see the humanity in this instance of even someone you do love and care about. Right? So when you ask that, especially on a night like tonight, be prepared to hold space for whatever that response may be. Right? It goes beyond self-care in these moments. We're in this moment in which self-care is kind of the buzzword, that you have to do self-care. Make sure you're creating space for that, which is super important. But what happens in those moments when you don't even have enough to care for yourself? How do you build community that will show up in those moments? And often in the moment in which you recognize your survivorhood, right? You don't have enough to do the self-care necessary to make it to that next moment. So who do we have in our community that we can say, they will be there for me to care, to show a care ethic until I can get back to self-care and then othering care, right? That those are both parts of being accountable too. And being able to say and admit, I'm not okay. I can't self-care right now. And are we willing to hear that? And on a night like tonight, when we're here to take back the night, part of that is taking back ownership of the ways in which we sometimes don't show up for those who need that extra push, that extra sense of care, who have been left without the tools to care for themselves and need that first step of saying, I see you, I feel you, I breathe into you. Right? To imagine what that means in this moment, in this night, to be proud that we're all here and that I feel like everyone here is committed to doing that kind of work, but that we recommit to it in a radical way. And by radical, I simply mean at the root, right? The root of asking someone how they're doing is at the root of figuring out if that person is okay or not. So if they are not okay, what's your follow-up question? What's your follow-up response? Right? Already having that on deck of thinking the multiple ways that someone can respond to how you're doing better equips you to be an advocate, an ally, a friend, a partner, in ending sexual violence. And the subsequent work of ending sexual violence means subsequently caring for those who've already been the victims of sexual violence. It also means thinking about love and justice in radical ways as well, meaning that we commit to loving one another harder, more fiercely, more warmly, and it means holding each other accountable. Love is also a practice of accountability. That means saying to one another, I am complicit in rape culture. I am complicit in rape culture. And how do I unlearn the things that continue to make me complicit in rape culture? There's several questions I tend to ask myself on a regular basis. And one that I've started to ask myself more recently is, what did I do this week to end rape culture? Did I challenge someone when I heard an offensive joke? Did I check in with someone I know as a survivor? Did I fully check in with myself? Did I listen to people around? Did I listen to women in my life, to trans folks in my life, to queer folks in my life, to trans folks in my life? Did I listen? Did I hear? These are the ways in which we start to end our complicity in rape culture. It is very easy to see ourselves as activists and people fighting against. It's much harder to see ourselves as implicated in that violence. But in order to truly take back the night and to end sexual violence, the people in this room have to be honest about our contributions to the broader context in which sexual violence occurs. So we must love harder, be accountable to one another, unlearn our complicity in rape culture, and really stand and believe survivors. When someone tells you their story, believe them. Hold them, and I don't just mean physically, but hold them and their stories. Believe them again, affirm them again, love them harder, love all of us harder. Thank you.